Good afternoon, everybody. We'll get started. We are still waiting for a few more people, but in the interest of time this afternoon, we will get going. How's everybody doing today? Kind of good, yeah? Great. I'm just going to put out a bit of a welcome poll just while I'm talking. So it'd be really great just to get a sense of how everybody is. So thank you so much for joining us on this Delivering Music Activities online course. We know that through this pandemic, so many people have had to completely rethink their practice in many ways and take what they do online and work with children and young people in a range of circumstances. So we felt that it would be quite timely at this point to bring people together and to have a sharing session where we provide some case studies of how some people have done it, but where we also really give you the opportunity to share with each other ideas, practice, and hopefully take away some lots of thoughts that you can then use in your ongoing work. So I'm going to hand over in just a minute to our brilliant speakers, but just a few Zoom housekeeping things. I'm sure you're all so familiar with this now, as we all are. Suggest that you use the speaker view button at the top if you're not already. If you're experiencing any issues with your connection, and I know that there are thunderstorms following us all around the country, you might want to switch your video off. That might just help a little bit with your connection. If the name used on your Zoom profile isn't your name, it would be great if you could change it to whatever your name is. My son changed my Zoom name to Goat without me realising the other day, and I swiftly had to change it back. So if anyone has that issue, please change it back so that we know who we're talking to. If you could all keep your microphones muted unless we're having a discussion, that would be great. Also, please feel free to switch video on and off, just as and when. We all completely appreciate everyone has other distractions and things happening in the background. We'll be using the chat function quite a lot today for questions and for comments, but also, obviously unmute yourself if you're going to be speaking. We haven't had any requests for closed captioning today, but if you're struggling to hear the speakers, if you'd like us to ask them to slow down, please send me a message, or if you want a bit more clarity around things, just send either myself or Emily a message around that. We really recognise that concentrating on a screen we've got 2 hours this afternoon can be a bit tiring, so please feel free to get up, walk around, stretch, keep well hydrated, make sure this is an enjoyable experience for you. If there are any issues with the technology that are beyond our control, so if everything crashes, we'll reschedule the session. But if there's something to do with the technology that is to do with you, we're recording the session, which we can make available to people afterwards on request, and we will circulate the speakers' presentations as well. So hopefully you won't miss out, and we'll be publishing notes from the session afterwards. Finally, just a reminder that Sound Connections is a charity. We're funded by Youth Music, so we are able to put these events on. But any donations, no matter how small, people can make, really do enable us to be able to continue to do this sort of work. So something will go around about this a bit later on. If you felt able to donate as a result of today, that we'd be very grateful. So the format of today, it's in two halves. The first half of the session is going to be presentations, and there'll be opportunity for you to ask the speakers questions after each of the talks. And then the second, we'll have a short comfort break, just a very quick kind of 5 minutes. And then the second half of the session will be what we're calling 60-second sharing sessions. So I will tell you a little bit more about those when we get to them, but that will be your opportunity to go off into breakout rooms and to chat in smaller groups about some of the practice that you've been doing. So I'm going to end my poll now. Thank you very much to everybody who voted. Most people are intrigued, that's good. And yeah, a few people are tired and zoomed out, which I totally relate to. So hopefully this will be a nice, pleasant, calming experience for you all, and you'll enjoy the afternoon. So I'm going to hand over now to to our brilliant colleagues and friends at Kinetika, Bloco, Tamzyn, Shayanna and Zayan, who are going to be sharing with you the work that they've been doing with delivering music activities online to young people. Thank you very much.
Hello. Hi, I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully that will work. Okay, hi everybody. This is the first time I've done this. We've been doing lots of online stuff, but it's normally other people delivering it. So bear with us. I'm Tamzyn from Kinetika Bloco, and my colleagues Shayanna and Zayan are here to share with us today, and we were asked just to share some details about what we've been doing online. So hopefully it's helpful. We're going to try and keep what we say fairly short, so there's space for questions at the end. So just a little for anybody that doesn't know who we are. We are a music charity based in London. We work with young people from different schools across South London, and we use samba drums, steel pans, brass, woodwind and dance to engage young people in music activities. So we're sort of a carnival music band. We do this through summer schools. So normally we run summer schools for around 250 people over the summer, probably going to look a little bit different this year, but we work with young people 8 to age 25, running after school clubs, school projects, a leadership program, because we do leadership training with our alumni in order to employ them in the future, and then big performances. So we performed some really big events, from on the Great Wall of China to leading the 2012 Olympic Victory Parade, and just this last November we went to New Orleans and did some performances there, which was amazing. So we are very loud, we're large, we're diverse, we're mixed ability. We have people like from beginners through to young people that are at music college, and we're a kind of in your face sort of music experience. So this is what we normally look like. There's lots of us. We like proximity. We like playing loud together. So lockdown has been an interesting experience for us. You can see from Sam's face here in the picture that he's really excited about the whole thing, which is kind of all of our feelings. Anyway, it is upon us, and so we started lockdown in the Easter holidays, and we had some funding from Youth Music to deliver workshops in Croydon on a project that we're doing with Croydon Music Hub, and they were kind enough to let us repurpose the money to run some online sessions to kind of test what would work and see what we could do. So we ran 4 days, online sessions, one-to-ones, teaching, small groups, some games, and then we did a rehearsal with 40 young musicians to see how that would work. And we asked all of the people who participated to fill in a form at the end to tell us what they thought, what worked, what didn't work, what they enjoyed, what they wanted more of, and kind of what they thought the experience was in terms of online versus real life, so that we could get a feeling for how that was for them and what they missed and all of that. So some of the things that they felt as a result of the online stuff was that, you know, playing together is obviously really hard. I'm sure everyone's tried it. Latency is real. You can't play together. It sounds like our drum section picks the drum kit up and throws it down the stairs. But they also really enjoyed the fact that we played together online and that it was fun, and they could just have a laugh at what they've created. One of the things that's really important to them is social interaction. So they miss seeing friends in real life, but seeing friends through the online experience really helped. And one young person said we were the only group at that time that had kind of tried to keep that group feeling going. Communication was something that they really recognized was hard online. It's difficult to read people's minds over a computer, very true. And it was interesting to see how much they understand about the communication, like how music and communication are very important in order to do it well. But they also saw that doing stuff online would help them continue to develop skills, even though we weren't able to meet together. So We asked them what kind of sessions they wanted. We saw the market start to get completely flooded with loads of things happening. And so we didn't want to just put lots of stuff out there and create content. We wanted to really ask young people, like, what did they want from us at this time? And if you can see from this graph, the things that were really popular that they wanted us to do were kind of one-to-one sessions, group music sessions. So even though, like we said, the first rehearsal sounded terrible, by the end of the rehearsal it was a great experience and they wanted more of that. Jam sessions, master classes. We wondered if we should try and help with school, like music tutorial help or anything. They weren't really interested in that. Or music theory sessions. And interestingly, we asked, do you want kind of some general chat and fun and bant sessions, or do you want like some mindfulness and well-being sessions? And chats and bants went much more popular. So we created, I guess, the vision for what we wanted to do online. We called it the shutdown sessions. And our vision was pretty much the same as it is with everything that we do, which is like, let's give the young people what they say that they want overall. And what we wanted to do was make that social, make it fun. Fun's a really important part of what we do at Bloco. We wanted to be an opportunity to chat and connect, but also play and develop skills. Part of our vision was also that we wanted to be able to employ our team. So I said we run a leadership program. About 75% of our freelance staff are young people that have grown up in Bloco that we now employ. So they are reliant on like the money that we give them and the money that they get from gigs, and all of that was cancelled. So part of our vision as well was to be able to continue employing people. And we wanted to go for sessions that would encourage, support and develop their skills rather than just have a great musical outcome. So we didn't want to just go for the like, let's send a click track round and create some piece that looks really good. That's great, and other people are doing that, and we wanted to just focus on let's just keep providing sessions that bring people together and allow them to play music. So we chose Zoom as our platform. Right at the beginning, I applied for an education version of the program. I just said we were a music school, and they accepted that. And so we were able to get the free application and have the 40 minutes taken off and everything like that straight away. I suspect lots of you have used Zoom by now, so this is probably stuff that you know, but in terms of our safeguarding, they put a lot of things in place already, because I think a lot of school and education establishments use them. So we enabled the waiting room, which is great. No one can join until we're there and ready for them. We tell the young people and anyone coming they have to use their full name, and we don't let them in unless they do, so that we're not, you know, liable to have someone come and Zoom crash our session. We enable the chat so that they can only chat to the whole group. There's no opportunity for like inappropriate chatting amongst people. Whatever they say, it goes to everybody. And all the meetings are done on our Bloco account. So there's no musician going off and doing their own sessions. It's all done in-house as a kind of corporate session. We've used the breakout rooms. If you haven't used breakout rooms, you're going to get to see them today, I guess, in the sessions that we do here, but they're a brilliant way of running lots of sessions at the same time, which makes it a lot easier to safeguard, because you can have staff that can go in and out of each room, much like you would in a real life you know, classroom, to be able to go in and check on what's happening. So that's been really great. And then we just produced some online safeguarding tips that we sent to all the young people and parents, with all of the stuff like laid out really clearly, which we'd be happy to share with people if they want at the end. So I was going to hand over. We've got Shayanna here, who's one of our Zoom junkies. She comes to all of our sessions. And she's going to share a little bit from her experience as a young person participating, and also she teaches on dance on one of our after school clubs as well. So hand over to you, Shayanna.
Okay, so I'm Zion and I'm 15, and before lockdown I was supposed to be like doing my GCSEs and finishing secondary school, but that didn't really happen. So I'm just going to talk about my personal experience, like using Zoom, like teaching as well as like being a part of the band. So I'm quite passionate about it, because we know that the end result isn't going to be perfectly timed and amazing and sound like it would do in real life, but it's inclusive to everyone, like even if they have special educational needs or like they're a newcomer, and it's really good for one-to-one sessions as well. And I feel like it could become the future alongside like live classes as well, because it's popular and it goes beyond Bloco. Like I've seen it in so many different music clubs and stuff. Um, I feel like screen sharing is a really good way to like share sheet music so we can read music instead of like reading out the notes and then writing them down and not like being able to say like see the time and stuff like that. So that's quite good. I feel like the chat is good for like instructions that can't be said, or just messages that like is hard to read or hard to understand. And the like virtual wave and hand up button is really good if you feel like you can't be heard. But there's some stuff that doesn't work. I feel like attendance is one of them things that don't usually work. Like some weeks we can have like loads of people in one class, but then there are other weeks where there might not be so many. And also the lack of attention, like when you're at home, it's like easy to get distracted by like a piece of string or like a teddy bear. Also by like not getting breaks, we get a little bit bored. But I feel like Bloco is really good at keeping our attention because there's a lot of social activity and group stuff that keeps us going. Um, there's some people, like some of my friends, that feel comfortable with Zoom and don't feel comfortable with Zoom. But when some of my friends are on there, I feel like it's really good because having someone like one of your friends on that call can make your experience 10 times better than being in a breakout room with people that you might not be familiar with. But then again, some people feel restricted and feel like they have to be committed to something that they don't really want to do, and they might have to work below like their level for the other people that's on the Zoom call. So yeah, that's just my experience.
That's great. Thank you. And then Shayanna Dyer-Harris is our program manager, and she delivers a lot of the sessions that we do and facilitates them, and also does a lot of our inclusive sessions with young people. So she's going to share a little bit about that.
Hey, so as a facilitator, we're all very well versed at how to manage. Well, we're all trying to be very well versed at how to manage a classroom setting face to face. We know how that works. We know what a said look can mean to a young person. We know how to encourage them with body language. We understand what we want to achieve at the end of the session. And it's the very same with working with young people online, whether that's group or one-to-one. So you're doing the same thing. For me, it's been the same thing. Once, when you're preparing your workshop material, you know already that planning is key. So for me personally, when I'm doing my music workshops, I'm preparing my backing track, because you want to have something for them to listen to whilst they're doing. I need them to be able to keep in time. I need them to be able to feel what I'm doing. So I create a backing track, and I'm always thinking about the music that I'm trying to convey. So I've planned that already. I've got my materials ready should I need any sheet music for the young people to use, or if I have any visual materials that I need to use as well. So in terms of material, it has to be strong, and I aim for simple material to start with that I can build on. Because for me personally, if I want to make sure that the sessions that I'm going to deliver are inclusive, I need it to be built in building blocks. So I have my end goal, and I've split it up into smaller sections that I know that we can achieve. So along the way, I can build around that. I can build conversation around it. I can find out how they're doing, and I can also congratulate them, because I find that working online, the silences in between can be deafening when the mic shuts down, or that little bit of that moment where you can't quite remember what you were about to do because you're distracted, as Zion said, by that piece of string that keeps floating across the screen. So I've got my building blocks that I've set out that we can achieve. So that's my planning. My planning is that we're going to take these small steps to move towards our goal. And it also means that in terms of if I'm going to deliver, whether I'm delivering to a group or an individual, I can move at the pace that is needed to fit the group and that individual as much as possible, especially if you're thinking about delivering to young people who have special educational needs, which might need for them. I've got one young person who I need to move quite quickly because actually he gets the material dead on every time. I don't have to repeat anything. But then I've got some young people who need that time. And so by having these building blocks in my material, I'm able to move at the pace that best suits the young person, which is key. So tailoring for me in terms of material is key. I'm planning also within there how I can engage with them. I know that, as I said, the things that we do as facilitators, you know, that might be just giving that extra bit of attention, getting closer to them. That smile may not translate across the camera. So I need to be able to build those in as a vocal thing. So just making sure I call their name so they know that I'm talking to them, because you can't make the same eye contact. Telling them when they've done something brilliant. And because I've got my building blocks, again, I know when they've achieved something and where they need pushing. Then delivery. So I like to smile a lot. I think smiling is key. I think if the Wi-Fi freezes, if your connection freezes and it freezes on your face, smiling, it's a lot better than a grimace. And it's also encouraging to the young person, because it is possibly a very difficult thing for them to deal with. Letting them know at the beginning of the sessions that mistakes are okay, and that we're not probably going to play together, it's not going to be in sync, but that's also okay. And being at peace with yourself that your expectations of the session may not get to where you thought it would be. And also sharing that with a young person, that doesn't matter where we get to, we'll get somewhere together. Big call on this, actually, the mute button, which doesn't always seem to be my friend. You must, just a reminder, make sure you press that mute button before you start speaking, or at least check. The amount of muted calls and conversations I've had with people have been criminal. And then the last thing for me after the sessions is checking with our young people. Who did I notice is not there? That was their last time that we did it. How are they doing? Calling them to find out if they're okay. Letting them know. So I think it's really important to still be able to convey to them their importance as an individual in the session. And so when I'm speaking to them, I'm saying, no one can fill your spot if you're not there. So you have to be there, and giving them a way to be part of it if they're feeling uncomfortable. So things like saying, you don't have to turn on the camera. You don't have to speak at all if you don't want to. You can actually just come say hey to me before the session starts, because I'm online 15 minutes before the session begins, and then you can go if you don't feel comfortable today. As long as I've seen your face, or as long as I've heard your voice or seen your name, that's enough for me, just so they feel that they can be part of it in the way that they want to and in the way that they feel comfortable. And then lastly, listening to that feedback. As program manager, part of my role is, again, making sure that the young people are okay and involved and engaged. And that extends to, so our special educational needs young people, and making sure that the big sessions, actually realizing that the big sessions didn't suit them at all. Some of the parents got back to us and said, we find it too difficult. There's too many people for them to learn anything. It's really distracting. And actually, it's also too long. So we, in response, created a session that was shorter, that allowed them to just talk and share feelings, or talk about football. Arsenal's very popular in the session we ended up creating. And just relax and just be. And that is one of our most successful sessions, because it really does cater to the needs of the young person and to the young people. Because you have to recognize also that one session, and I had to recognize that one session doesn't fit all. No matter how many building blocks, no matter how much smiles, no matter how much banter and how good your material is, you also have to recognize that it may not fit. So you are constantly engaging with young people and talking to them and finding out how they feel, what they want, and where they want to go next. I hope that's okay.
Thank you, Shay. Yeah, so that's us really. I hope it's helpful, and happy to have any questions if there's time. I think, Abby, that's...
Yeah, thank you so much. That was such a great talk, and so good to get your perspectives, Diane and Shay. That was brilliant. And I love the thing about keeping smiling for when you freeze. I think that's just, I would take that forward. So We have got time for a few questions. It would be really helpful if people do have questions, if they could put them in the chat, just because we're a little bit tight on time and there are lots of you out there. I've had one question, which is, experiences that online takes much more planning and preparation time, and could you comment on how you have found this in your practice, so sort of the amount of time it takes to plan and prepare for sessions?
In planning and preparation, I've got quite a bit of material, and whenever I come across anything that I think might work in general, I tend to write it down, and I have like books and bits and pieces and paper and voice notes that I record of things that I think will work, and I test that out. Because I'm now building tracks to back up my music sessions, so literally it can just be a shaker sound just to make sure that it works and that there's something to play with. That can take anywhere between half an hour to 45 minutes, and that's before I've decided how things are going to work. But if you decide on a structure for your sessions and you keep this as a template, it makes it a lot easier to do. That helps.
Thank you. And slightly similar, Anne, and there's another similar question as well. Anne has asked, could you talk through one of your group sessions and what type of activities do you do? And someone else has asked, how long are your sessions?
So each session, again, is kind of tailored. So if I take you through our SEND session, it's an hour long. And in that session, this is a bit more, it's music, but it's chat, as I said before. It is a welcome. So you've got the buffer time that you have, because people are notoriously late, figuring out where the links are in general, how to get in, turning on the camera, all that. And you're having your chatter for about 10 minutes. Maybe you give that buffer time. Then I've got 20, so we invite someone to join with us, another staff member to join and have the chatter. And we do 20 minutes of talk, and we're talking about how they're feeling, what they want, what they've been up to over the weekend, or what they've been up to in the week, or what's interesting, or whether they're back at school. Then we give 10 minutes devoted to football, because football is very important to that group. And then the last 20 minutes, we're sharing music. And that music, we tell them that they can share a track. They can play something to us on their instruments. They can talk us through a piece of music. They can be DJ, or they can play. And we leave that open, so that last 20 minutes, so that they can also give feedback to the young people about the tracks that they've shared. And then session is done with a close and a goodbye and a see you next week. I think that's the easiest one to give, but I'm happy to give a breakdown of any of the longer sessions if anybody wants.
Yeah, I was just going to talk quickly. So our bigger sessions, our like Friday rehearsals, we do them fortnightly. They're two hours long. There's about 40 young people that come to that. And what we do is everybody comes into the space to start with. And again, we do, like Shay said, a welcome chat, how's everyone been? And then we break it down into a drum section, brass and woodwind, dance, steel pans. Someone asked about singing. We don't do singing. We have been doing some singing one-to-ones, but it's brass, drums, steel pans and dance. We send them off into their breakout rooms. And when they do the actual work in that, normally the tutor stays on and everybody else mutes, and they'll learn a piece of music together. So sound-wise, all they're doing is hearing the tutor and playing themselves to learn a piece of music, to practice something new, to learn a dance. They do that probably about 45 minutes, and then they come back into the session, and then that's when each section, we just unmute the whole section and they try and play their piece together, and that's when it sounds absolutely terrible, but it also sounds hilarious at the same time. So we all enjoy that, and everyone's trying to like catch the tune and dance along if they're not in that section. And then we found that because the sound is so bad, that they don't really get, you know, to share their musicality quite so much in that. We then started doing, and it started on the first one by accident, and then we built it in the last half an hour, we call the expression session. And then anybody who wants to share something can do it, and they do that by themselves. So some of the guys that are trying to learn new saxophone jazz standards or something, they'll play their piece and everyone congratulates them. Sometimes one kid's got a chicken and he introduces us to the chicken and we talk to that. So there's all different, but it's like whatever they want to share, they can share. So there's a little bit of sort of performance at the end that doesn't sound as terrible as when everybody plays together. And our young people I saw as well, so brass and woodwind players, they have their own instruments. Some young people have drums. but we kind of improvised with that. So Shay did some stuff on, like, you know, you can use a pillow, you can use your hands, you can use like a biscuit tin or something to use as a drum. And a few of our young people have steel pans because we managed to get them to them in advance, but not many. So it's a bit mixed with that.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to go back to a couple of these questions. Someone's asked, Magda's asked about an example. Can you give an example of music activity that you deliver to primary children? Do you work with?
We don't usually work with Kinetika Bloco hasn't delivered online to really young people, but I have, and I like using homemade instruments, so pots, pans, boxes, shoe boxes, things that are around the house, because it gets them to look, it gets them involved in their own environment, and we bring that together. And I like working with them on samba music or African pieces that are that we can build together. But it's really important that when I plan to do these things, that I like to include them. So it's including their names in rhythms. It's asking them to give me a rhythm back. If I count to 4, can you clap something to me or play something on your instrument that we can all copy? So it's really interactive, asking them questions about what they're playing and building towards something that we can perform at the end, out in the open, but also that's interesting and that involves a part of them as well as me giving them something. I think that's really important when you're working with really small young people, because it can be a bit boring staring at a screen and being made to play everything that the teacher's telling you to play. And as much as you feel like you're being really fun and bold, and, you know, if you haven't listened to a word they said, they're gone. No mercy with little people.
That's great, thank you. And 2 more questions. The first is, are there any fun icebreaker activities that young people have said they enjoy? And Shayanna, I don't know whether you might like to respond to that. And the second question is, Shayanna, just for a bit of clarification around building blocks and what you meant. So icebreakers and building blocks.
So icebreakers, like, there's a couple games that we do. So personally, my favorite is the scavenger hunt, where like one of like the big members of staff were like, okay, the first person to find like a set of keys or a pound coin, and we'll have to run off and find it. I feel like it's good because it gets us like awake for the session, and, you know, after that everyone kind of like feels comfortable with the group. Also, like, we asked like, what have you done like this week and what have you got coming up for the next week? So everyone's just like getting to know a little bit more about each other. And every time there's a new person in the group, the new person always has to like introduce themselves. So it's not like, oh, I don't know that person, or that person's not in my section, so I don't really know their name. Everyone is quite familiar with each other.
Brilliant, thank you. And Shay?
So for building blocks are the steps that they need to achieve in order to get to the big, massive goal at the end, which is the piece of music. So I've got, you think about in terms of your musical piece, it will be, I need them to be able to play the introduction. But then I need them to play the introduction now to my click track, to my metronome. I now need my the group to learn the main body of the tune, and now I need them to recognize that main body of the tune is called the groove. Good. So now they respond to when I do groove and when I do that sign. Perfect. Now I need them to be able to achieve going from the groove back into the intro again. Great. That's my next building block. So it's literally breaking up all the parts of the music that will get them to be able to play that big massive tune, the big massive song at the end of the session. Is that okay? I'm trying to do it quite quickly.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Thank
Cool.
you. So I think on that note, we'll end this part of the session. But thank you all so much. That was fantastic, and you'll see in the chat, lots of thanks and positive comments. So So really appreciate it, and we will, if there are any further questions, perhaps if you know, as Jim's talking, you guys can perhaps respond to them in the chat, and then at the very end of this session we'll have a bit of an open space if people want to sort of carry on chatting. So thank you, really appreciate it, and Zayan, thank you particularly for being with us today. It's really fantastic to have your perspective, so I'm really grateful. So moving on to Jim Pinchen from Surrey Arts. He's out there somewhere in the Zoomosphere. Jim?
I'm waving madly at you, Abby.
Waving madly, okay. Yeah, if you talk, then you'll come on. So I'm going to hand you over to Jim, who is going to share the practice that they've been doing in Surrey. So thanks, Jim.
But what I was saying is that I really enjoyed the first presentations, and it made me reflect on something Tamzyn was saying about when the lockdown started and there was this sudden urgent energy to get activities online. Actually, the sector was flooded with resources, and I definitely felt like a sense of almost like resource fatigue, and that's why I'm really pleased and honoured and gaining so much from this session where we can actually share ideas and share activities. I feel it's really needed, and like immediately I know that on Saturday I'm going to be doing the scavenger hunt. That's brilliant. That's immediately going to be put into use. So I'm going to talk about our experiences. I'm just sharing what we've done, really. You know, we're all learning as we're going along. Because of what's happened, probably I'm going to speak too fast. So if I do, please just unmute yourself and say, "Dude, slow down." And I definitely will do that. No problem. Please do tell me. Can I just, because now I'm really quite pessimistic. Can you hear me? Great, a couple of thumbs up. Okay, thank you. So my name's Jim, and I'm the inclusion manager at Surrey Arts, Surrey Music Hub. I also work freelance for Musicians Without Borders in areas of conflict and post-conflict internationally. And I mention that because I'm really interested in looking beyond our borders, not just local authorities, Surrey, but beyond the UK. And that has its challenges, obviously, at the moment with everything that's happened. As a music hub, we, like all music hubs, we have funding from Arts Council that comes from central government. We also are part of the Youth Music AMI network, Alliance for an Inclusive Music England. So we're part of a partnership in the Southeast. So that brings some additional funding. And so we've been able to really hit the ground running and get some activity up and running. And unfortunately, many hubs and music services and organisations haven't been able to do that. So I say that with respect to all those musicians and music tutors that have found this whole period very difficult and are out of work. We did also do some work with Naimaz and Abby, actually looking at distance learning. So we'd had a bit of a head start with this whole thing, which helped us to get a program up and running pretty quickly. I think it's fair to say that all children and young people are vulnerable at the moment. It's a very strange situation for every child, every young person, or every adult, actually. But we wanted to have a program for those children and young people who are especially vulnerable. And Surrey's a strange place. It's fairly monocultural as a county, but it does have pockets of deprivation. And it does have, like we have one of the highest number of unaccompanied asylum-seeking children in the country, of Gypsy, Roma, traveller communities. And so when you unpick things in the county, that there is a lot of need out there. And we sort of went through this process of looking at actually where does this activity need to be concentrated at this time. So we offered out a program, 10 free music lessons for looked after children and care leavers, young people, children with special education needs, young people in alternative education settings. So that might be pupil referral unit or some kind of secure setting, like a mental health secure unit. Unaccompanied minors and young refugees. And we also have 2 inclusive orchestras. One is called Up Orchestra, and it's an inclusive project, but it's mostly young people with physical and learning needs. And a project called I Speak Music, which is another integrated project, but is intergenerational. And the heart of that program is about promoting empathy between refugees and host communities. So this is the offer that we put together, and then we launched that. I'm going to go into my presentation, which hopefully will work. So I will go quite quickly through this because there's now less time, but I'll send this to Abby afterwards, and very happy to share all of these notes. But this is essentially the program that we put together. Technically, there's a lot of crossover with what Tamzyn was saying around Zoom. What I can do also is share our safeguarding policy for anyone who's starting out on this journey. We're learning all the time about what works, what doesn't work, but always constantly reviewing and tweaking our safeguarding policy. So if it helps, that's not a secret document. It's online, and I can share the link. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here reading a policy, but essentially with Zoom, and most people are doing the same, we don't allow recording because the local authority was unhappy about the GDPR implications of that. All of our teachers, and we have around 200, just under 200 teachers now, they have Zoom accounts that are linked to our education account. Screen share, we think screen share is inevitable, is an important feature, but the teacher will have control over when the student can share. We also enabled waiting rooms. That's really important in terms of safeguarding. If you've heard about Zoom bombing, there are actual incidences with children's choirs. So the waiting room, and I'm kind of covering Tamzyn's ground again, but I think that's okay because it's so important that we know who is entering the space when we're working with children and young people, and especially vulnerable ones. All of our teachers now have attended training. As I say, that's just below 200. We as project managers, we can check out those lessons anytime. And all of the tutors have a Surrey Arts logo. So the parent, the carer, the young person knows that they're there with the right person. And there's lots of just really good, sensible advice in the safeguarding document around having a separate login for your teaching, so your desktop doesn't have anything inappropriate or anything you don't want to share, to make sure your background is neutral, and all of this is reciprocated. We expect that of the student as well. So we're trying to set up something that feels as much as possible as any normal lesson. So we expect the same in terms of conduct and an appropriate dress, all of that kind of thing. So we have to have those baseline things before we start. So in terms of the actual activity happened that has happened to date, we also try and be, in our inclusion work at least, try to be as youth-led as possible. So with our online inclusive orchestra, we asked those guys what they want to do, and they really passionately wanted to make a song for the NHS and for key workers. I could talk for hours about the process, but just to kind of summarize, we essentially just ditch any normal standard ensemble process. we realise that what's fundamentally important at the moment is to provide a fun space for young people to reconnect, to see their friends. So when we go online, we have one of our young people DJing. We have at least 5 minutes of silly nonsense and games and dancing, and that's really important. We need to provide that space. And then we've been working on a song. So the students in between lessons, between these sessions, they go out and they will record found sounds. They might record the NHS clap. If they're having one-to-one music lessons online, they can work with their music tutor to write some melodies as part of the song. And every 2 weeks we meet, we've been putting that into a final song. This project is, we used to have quite a traditional model of having an experienced music facilitator leading, like a musical director. And we've handed that over to the young people. So every project we have one of the young people leading it. The song is sounding great, not ready, can't play it to you, but we'll definitely forward it. It's really sweet, it's lovely. It makes me quite emotional every time I listen to it.
Jim, can I just jump in? We can't see your PowerPoint. Are we meant to be seeing that? We can see your YouTube.
Yes, you are. Are you seeing that now?
Perfect. Yes, thank you. And we can send this round to people afterwards, can't we?
Okay. Okay. So with I Speak Music, we again they also wanted to make a piece of music and a song to recognise the dedication, the hard work, frontline services. That program is all about celebrating diversity and bringing groups together who would not normally meet. So the lens for that project is we've written a song that makes specific reference to the contribution and the importance of migrant communities within the NHS and other services, and the talents of refugees. It really has that theme, and we're launching a big project this week, which is Refugee Week. Saturday is World Refugee Month, so we'll be launching that at the end of the week. And again, it's another beautiful project. And then we've had a bespoke program for unaccompanied minors, where we've been working with a charity who have helped with the English side of making sure that the lessons are functional. So they've been working alongside our music tutors to create English language worksheets. And that's been a really interesting project in itself. One thing I didn't mention before is actually what we're doing musically. So we're generally doing a lot of violin, guitar, piano, singing, and some brass and woodwind. And then we're doing increasing amounts of music production. And we found that Zoom integrated with Soundtrap, which you can see on the top right-hand corner, works really well. And if there's time, which there possibly won't be, I'd like to show a little video of a project which is working with music tutors from around the world who collaborated with me on the Soundtrap project, Soundtrap integrated with Zoom. It's a really good way of doing it. It doesn't have to be Soundtrap, but with Soundtrap, you can use it on any device and you can be logged onto the same session at the same time. And that's quite unique, actually. In terms of our mainstream offer, we're now delivering 2,000 lessons a week, and our inclusion offer is 72 lessons online a week. Most of that is in young people's homes, and some of that is in other settings like special schools. The other thing that's been really interesting is training, and a bit like this really. I offered some music and autism training, was expecting to have maybe 30 to 40 people, and in the end over 200 people signed up, and we had to run it 3 times. I just wanted to mention, because I wanted to mention the other benefits of all of this. It's easy to talk about technology and Zoom and Soundtrap and safeguarding and all of this work. But I just wanted to take a pause and to kind of reflect on the importance of technology and music. And what we found is the connection that it allows has been just so important. So especially our ensembles, and especially the relationship that we have as music leaders. We're not quite formal teacher in that formal classroom sense, and yet we're doing something creative. And I think that's unique and important to the children and young people. And that's become really apparent through the last few weeks. The other thing is around resilience, and in a way, what's just happened with the technology going wrong and finding new ways of working, and songwriting, recording our emotions, however difficult they are, as we record them and make songs, we can kind of leave them behind and we can return to them as we want to, and technology allows us to have that relationship. And it's something that's come through really clearly for me, as I say, for the last few weeks. And there's also just a sense of hope, when with all the lack of hope that we see in the news, actually it can be profound to see the joy from these online ensembles and creating something. And actually, if we can get over these boundaries and these barriers and create together, it does fill us with the sense that actually anything is possible. So it really just embeds a sense of hope, and I think it's important to take a moment and reflect on those benefits of technology and the whole Zoom world we're now in. I do take a break because what I found is, myself personally, and maybe some of you can relate to this, is everything's through the screen now, and it is important for ourselves and children and young people that we connect to the world around us and to nature and to the floor under our seat and under our feet. And that's why with the Up Orchestra project, we try to do things that get young people outside, so they weren't just, our relationship with them wasn't purely through Zoom. I'll leave this as something to send around, but we did some questionnaires around some of this stuff, the role of these lessons and how important it has been. And for many of the children, their music lesson was to the extreme that it was actually keeping the family together, and if not, a really big important part of that child's life. I think that's kind of enough. So I've zipped through this. I hope it's okay. I would love to show a little video that might be of interest if there's time, Abby, and if not, really happy to take some questions.
Yeah, definitely. Perhaps show an extract of it, and then we could always play the whole thing again at the end.
Okay, so this is a project that I did for Musicians Without Borders, but I think it just demonstrates a good use of technology and bringing people together. In this case, from across the globe. There are people in Latin America, in Israel, in the Middle East, in Europe, and the UK. So I'll just play a little bit. Whenever you're ready.
Little bird. When you're not speaking, maybe. Little bird, take thy flight far across the shadows, far across the shadows, far across the shadows of
siento, yo no me siento más lento, se me sale ya del pecho, música que llevo adentro y más, así me expreso con mi rap, dame algo para escribir y mi mente va a soltar y más, separa el tiempo, nuestro planeta, no es cosa de cuento, si te lo cuento, ¿de qué va eso? La esperanza siempre importa. Mis ideas las voy a aventar, yo no me quiero parar, así que lo voy a inventar. Una palabra lo voy a lograr, a mis amigos lo voy a crear, esa es mi arma que
Okay, I'll stop that there just because of time, and I don't want to annoy Abby any more than I have already today. But maybe there's a couple of minutes for questions.
Not possible. Yeah, that was brilliant. Thanks, Jim. Not annoyed in the slightest. I think that looking at the chat, I think that there's a lot of interest in the process of how you actually did that and how you made it work. So perhaps if you could spend a couple of minutes just talking a bit more about that process. Can you see the chat? You can perhaps see some of the specifics, you know, how you use Soundtrack for collaboration, how it works,
Sure.
it's live on Zoom, how did you get video
recording? Sure. Okay. So I couldn't see the chat. You can't see the chat when you're screen sharing. Well, you might be able to, but I couldn't see it. So basically I set up a template track. So I had some basic things in there, like a keyboard and some sounds and a few percussion instruments. And then I sent out the invite to these musicians, these music tutors. So, and then they were able to log into the Soundtrap file. That's the first thing I did. I said, go onto Soundtrap, here's the link, have a play around with it, get comfortable with how it works. The next thing we did is we arranged a time to meet on Zoom, just like this. And then whoever was recording would share their Soundtrap screen. So Soundtrap is an online, it lives in the cloud, it's not on your computer. So you log on to Soundtrap and you simply share that screen. So let's say that, okay, Miguel is going to record his saxophone part. We're all on Zoom like we are now. Miguel shares his screen and his audio into the Soundtrap file, and then we can see him recording, we can hear it live. And then he finishes recording, he clicks update, and then we all instantly, or within 10 seconds, can see what he's recorded. We can listen back and say, Miguel, actually do that bit again. We love this bit. Okay, fine. Now we're going to record the bass player or the rapper or the singer. Because of the time zone differences, I couldn't get everyone online at the same time, but we did have 6 of us, and then the rest did it separately. So it's a mix of Zoom and Soundtrap. And I know there is some really interesting work, I think, in Newer Music Service, Newer Music Hub, and they're using Zoom and Charanga to do a project in some pupil referral units there. So it doesn't have to be Zoom, but for me, it works really well because you can be logged on to the same session, the same song literally at the same time. And also what's really important is not every young person has access to a computer or a Mac. And actually it works really well on a tablet, on an iPad, on a phone even. So it's super accessible. And if you, as an organization, if you have a school account, it's free for your teachers and your students.